Ready or not, eclipse season is here, and we are kicking it off with a Pisces lunar eclipse happening on September the 7th, 2025 at 2:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please adjust your time according to wherever you are in the world, and we're going to go ahead and get into it. My name's Carly. This is Water Within Astrology, and I really want to thank you all for watching this video. If you would like to like and subscribe, I do bi-weekly videos on the new moons and the full moons. So you can come back and join me every 2 weeks as we talk about what's happening with the moon. And so this is our first official eclipse in eclipse season. Technically, we entered into eclipse season at the new moon we had 2 weeks ago, which was in Virgo. It's the first of 2 new moons. If you want to watch that video, check out my other videos to see what was going on with that. And we have this Pisces lunar eclipse, which is also known every year, regardless of it's of an eclipse or not. This full moon is known as the harvest moon. So, cue Neil Young. And a lunar eclipse is pretty much just a full moon times 10. By the way, everyone, this is Millie. She clearly wanted to be in the video today, so we're gonna just let her. She has high anxiety. It's Virgo season. A lot of us can relate. My Virgo moon can relate, so we're here to just let her be clingy and she can just hang out. She's a good girl. So, Sunday, September 7th, we're looking at this lunar eclipse, full moon, Pisces moon, Virgo sun, opposition. That's a full moon. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons why every full moon is kind of like crazy town, or like the lunatics come out, right? That's where the name lunatic comes from, Luna, the moon. It's because an opposition is known as a harsh aspect. It's an aspect that is ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is the harsh teacher. And we're going to talk a lot about Saturn today because Saturn just today moved back into Pisces. I'm coming to you today on the 1st of September, Labor Day in the US. And Saturn had made its debut in Aries just a couple months ago, and now it's going retrograde back into Pisces. It's going back to Pisces at 29 degrees, the very last degree point of the entire zodiac wheel. And Saturn is going to be moving back February of 2026 into Aries, where it will make its grand conjunction with Neptune exactly at 0 degrees of Aries. That is going to be a huge rebirth moment for the collective. Saturn rules over structures, it rules over governments, it rules over reality, it rules over karma and time. So it's going back to Pisces. Saturn is heavy too. It's the weighted energy that keeps us tethered to this reality. And so it's going back in Pisces to lighten its load just a little bit more so that it can go into this new birth and new paradigm with less to carry. And so what we could be asking ourselves during the next 6 months with Saturn back in Pisces is, what have we still not learned? Saturn is that karmic lesson. What are we still repeating as a lesson that is not completed yet, that we have still not healed completely? Pisces is that healing energy. It's that water of life, and all the water signs are healing, but Pisces is that highest healing, that higher unconditional love, that spiritual love, that source love. So going back, Saturn says, before we begin this new paradigm, you've had a taste the past couple of months, but we are going to have to go back and still let go of what is still weighing us down, what is still standing in our way, what is still a block, a barrier, because Saturn is boundaries, blocks, barriers, and what is still needing to be dissolved in that last degree of Pisces, because Pisces dissolves, Neptune dissolves. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces in the modern astrology, and the ancient ruler of Pisces was Jupiter. And funny enough, this lunar eclipse in Pisces is making a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. And we're going to get into that, but let's go back to Saturn. Saturn is, like I said, this teacher. He's the greatest teacher, but he is kind of that teacher that like holds this really high standard over you that you might feel like it's impossible to get to. You might feel like it's too hard. You might feel like your teacher's being too harsh on you. But Saturn is that teacher that's harsh because it believes in your greatest capacity and it wants you to reach that greatest capacity. So it's going to put us through the hard trials and tribulations that make us stronger. It's gonna say drop and give me 50 because it knows that's what's gonna build muscle. It knows that's what's going to get you to your goal. So Saturn is not gonna be nice. It's never really like that nice guy. So it could very well be doing some things such as cutting through illusions that we might have had around our new beginning. It's telling us to slow back down because Aries, when Saturn was in Aries, it's definitely maybe trying to take off running and before it's ready or before it pays its due diligence, before it wants to get to that end goal without maybe doing the hard things. And it can be impulsive and it cannot consider the long-term effects of what our decisions have been. So it's going back and it's like, okay, is this really the new beginning that we want to initiate? Saturn in Pisces at 29 degrees is also the extinction degree point, right? It's the end of the zodiac, the very last degree of the zodiac before it moves into Aries. And so we, are seeing a lot of extinction happening. We're seeing a lot of consequences for our actions as a collective humankind, and we might be reckoning with those consequences, and that's not going to be easy either. Saturn always brings us the lesson, but it's up to us what we do with it. We have free will, and so if we have made decisions in our choice of free will to ignore the lessons that we have been given and to spiritually bypass, then there are going to be consequences with that. And that's what Saturn is going to be bringing. Saturn, like I said, is the planet of boundaries. And with Pisces, it's dissolving those boundaries. So we might really be struggling with boundaries for the next 6 months or so. But once it moves into Aries, again, it's going to be this feeling of I'm going to do what I need to do in order to get what I want, right? And to make our dreams reality, because Saturn is still conjunct Neptune. Even if Neptune is still in Aries for now, it is retrograde and it will be going back into Pisces as well. And so Saturn and Pisces together at this conjunction point, and they're doing this little dance back and forth together. And in 2026, in February, they're going to make that exact conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries. Neptune brings in this element of the mystical, and it brings in this element of perhaps wanting to escape, feeling like there's, escape from reality, and there's, that those consequences and that karma is still right there with Saturn. So maybe we're experiencing some sobering moments with the Neptune-Saturn conjunction. Neptune and Saturn conjunction can also mean bringing our dreams into reality. So taking this time, harnessing the Virgo energy that we have right now to plan for what we want. We have 6 months left until that conjunction occurs. So now is a really beautiful, pivotal time to make those plans, to make that devotion, make that commitment to whatever we're devoted to, in order to bring about this new dream. Maybe this dream has something to do with, being an entrepreneur with Aries. Maybe it has something to do with being alone. If you were in partnership before and you're having to readjust to making that dream come true, if it's just you, and that can be more difficult, and it could be more liberating. Using that Aries fire to motivate us, to give us the courage, to give us the confidence, to give us that fight for our dream, right? So that's what we have going on with Saturn. It could also be, ripping off any rose-colored glasses that we've had around the last couple months with Saturn and Aries. If we did have new initiations occur and new things get set into motion, that's Aries, getting set into motion and taken off running, maybe we got a little, ahead of ourselves, and now we're like having some illusions be shattered. So let's go ahead and talk about how Mercury also is moving into its domicile of Virgo this week, and it is 5 degrees away from the new moon, the full moon. And so that is considered a conjunction. It's a wide conjunction, but it's right there 5 degrees away. And so we have this kind of like extra punch of Virgo energy. Even though this is the Pisces lunar eclipse, that Virgo energy is a big player because Mercury is super happy in Virgo, which is one of the signs that it rules over, known as its domicile. So think of Mercury as someone who is really able to communicate well. It's able to communicate in detail. It's able to communicate in a way that is like grounded and understood by people. It's not too out there. It's not too, like floating around in space like Pisces has a tendency to be. And so it also is bringing that reality aspect, just like Saturn is. And like I said, Mercury in Virgo is also really positive around planning. It's also very maybe anxiety inducing if you are someone who is an overthinker or someone who gets caught up in the details too much, and it takes you away from the present moment, and it can steal your joy, because the only time joy exists is in the present moment. So we have to keep coming back to that with the earth energy. And the Pisces energy is destabilizing. It is the last sign of the zodiac. It's moving from form to formless. It's literally the point of death in the zodiac wheel. If you think of the wheel as a lifetime, we're starting with Aries, which is the birth point, and then we move all the way through and we get to Pisces, and that's when the body no longer exists and we return back to source. So it can be a difficult time for us to get into the body. It can be a time of chaotic energy too, because Pisces isn't always just like going back to source, like pure amazing source, and there's all good things, heaven, if you prefer those terms. And it could also be the flip side, which is like the liminal space where like nothingness exists, and it's chaotic and it's formless and nameless and disorienting, because we're so used to reality. So it could go either way. It could be, like I said, escapism, and, if we're using substances to escape reality, that's a very Pisces thing. And that, like I said, Saturn could be coming in and being this like sobering energy that's like, you have to pay the piper now, and the consequences are coming in for our choices. Like I said, spiritual bypassing, huge right now. There's so much that the collective is going through, and we knew it would be a big one with it being a 9-year. 2025 is, if you add up all those numbers, it adds up to a 9. And it's also the year of the snake in Chinese astrology. We are shedding old skins, and it is uncomfortable and gross and ugly. And Saturn is also coming in to expose the corruption, right? It's bringing that like consequences also to what has been hidden in the collective, you know, like that Mercury Pisces, or that Mercury in Virgo and that Sun in Virgo is like, actually, let's get down to the details of what's going on here. Let's, you know, see the lists. Let's see the policies. Let's see the tariffs. Let's see what authority Saturn, you know, you're acting on. And with the trine to Jupiter, that is a positive aspect that is like an assistance from Jupiter in Cancer. And Jupiter in Cancer is like, we're going to hold these people accountable, and we're going to see through the bullshit, because ultimately we want everyone to be taken care of. Jupiter in Cancer is like, everybody is taken care of. Everybody feels at home. Everybody feels safe. Everybody is protected. And, you know, if you didn't know, it's really an amazing fact that I love to tell people, is that the birth chart of the USA, if you look up July 4th, 1776, and all the other details that are slipping my mind right now, you pull up the chart for the USA, and the USA is a Cancer sun, that's obvious, July 4th, and it's also got 3 other planets there. It has a Cancer stellium. If 4 or more planets are in one sign, that's known as a stellium. It's a very strong energy there. And so the USA originally was intended to be this place where care is for all, for, you know, a sense of belonging, a sense of safety, a sense of home. Everybody gets fed, everybody, you know, helps out, everybody helps to cook the meals, everybody takes care of the home, and everybody works together. But it's a interesting thing too to see that stellium in the chart, and then you look over on the opposite side of the chart. Cancer is opposite Capricorn, and the USA was born at 27 degrees of Pluto in Capricorn. So what that means is, it's almost like, because that opposition is there, it's saying like, yeah, everybody gets to be taken care of as long as we have power over you. As long as you give us all your power and money. Yeah, sure, you can stay and you can be here, and we'll pretend like you're, you know, home and safe. And maybe at first it was that way, but it was always that Pluto at 27 degrees of Capricorn that said, but this is where you pay up for that. And maybe it meant originally like that everybody was also financially taken care of. But as we're seeing today, and as we saw over the last 22 years with Pluto and Capricorn, that it more so turned into a meaning of power over structures instead of power to the people. But now we have Pluto in Aquarius. It is retrograde now, but it will not go back into Capricorn ever again in our lifetimes. Thank God. The other thing with Saturn that we can look at too when we are thinking about what we've been through over the past 28 years, because it takes Saturn 28 years to go through all the zodiac signs, all 12, and what's called a Saturn return for people, if you've heard of that term. Probably one of the more popular terms in astrology. What has transpired for you over the past 28 years that now you've had a moment of breathing room, and you've come out of that, and you're in, you know, maybe your Saturn is not in Aries, and you are still, regardless, it's at the beginning of the zodiac wheel, so it's a new beginning for everyone. Even if it's your Saturn return, it's a really big, beautiful, new energy with it being at the first sign of the zodiac. So just looking back over the past 28 to 30 years of your life, giving yourself a chance to really reflect. Pisces is very nostalgic and is, that last sign. So it takes a look over its back shoulder and is like seeing how far it's come and seeing all the lessons that it learned through the whole zodiac. And so, just giving yourself that opportunity to look back and appreciate how far you've come, and try to be easy on yourself. That Pisces energy does soften the Saturn quite a bit, but ultimately with it being at 29 degrees, which I won't get too technical, but normally the end degrees of a sign, there's these things called the bounds, and normally the last degrees are either Mars or Saturn ruled, so Saturn is actually pretty strong there at 29 degrees of Pisces. So it's going to look different for everyone. It's going to depend on where you have 15 degrees of Pisces. That's where the moon is going to be. The sun at 15 degrees of Virgo, and Mercury, like I said, at 10 degrees of Virgo. We also had Venus moving into Leo just a little bit ago. I think it was like a week ago now. And so Venus is super happy in Leo. It's not one of its ruling planets or ruling signs, but Leo energy is very associated with the heart. And so with Venus being there, maybe there is like a deep heart sense of, loving energy. Maybe there are big dramatic Leo proclamations of love. Maybe there's proposals happening. Maybe there's writing poetry with the Pisces energy being involved as well. Maybe there's a change to your look. Maybe there is a self-care routine, because Leo is ruled by the sun, which is the self. And the double whammy with the Virgo energy, Virgo sun, Virgo Mercury, it could be very humbling to that Venus in Leo too. So just keeping an eye and checking the ego whenever it's getting too, self-absorbed or whatever, could be like the tyranny as well. But normally with Venus being a benefic planet, a planet that brings generally good things, it could be a good thing that we are maybe bringing the energy back in a little bit, especially with the Pisces stuff. It's like there's so much we're going through collectively and individually that we might have to like reel it back in and come back to self and like let everything else just kind of be, even if that, we don't want to go into spiritual bypassing, but we also don't want to get so out of whack with our boundaries and we're just like wanting to save everyone, because Pisces is that savior and that martyr. We have to find balance, and that brings me to Mars in Libra. Mars in Libra is debilitated there, and it's not happy, because Libra can sometimes be this like indecisive energy. It's always weighing the options. It's always like kind of avoiding confrontation, or it could be, the opposite of avoiding confrontation and being something very involved in the systems of law, the systems of justice, like actual court cases and stuff like this, bringing peace to everybody. And it might not seem fair, but it is just. So Mars wants to take action. Mars wants to be direct. Libra can be like, oh, I don't know, maybe we'll just not make a decision to avoid rocking the boat, to avoid throwing the scales out of balance. But it also can be, fights in our relationships. Libra is that relationship sign that's like you know, it can be a people pleaser. It can be, you know, maybe you're having some like anger come up and resentment come up around like how you have people pleased or other people please or whatever that looks like. So that's the Mars in Libra. And then, of course, like I said at the beginning, Jupiter in Cancer is coming in, and it really is here to assist us now in asking us to trust the process. Jupiter is that spiritual, higher understanding, that trust and faith, and Pisces is also that trust and faith, and going above the logical and going maybe even against what we logically understand, and having to throw that out the window because it doesn't make any logical sense what we're going through. Nothing makes sense as to why people would be making the decisions that they are. You know, the powers that be are making these decisions that to us, it just doesn't make any sense how they can be so corrupt and so evil and so, you know, heartless, and be so like devoid of that higher unconditional love for all beings. And yeah, so throwing that out, because trying to make any logical sense of it is actually just perpetuating the chaos and the overthinking and the, you know, anxiety and all those things. And so all we can really do sometimes is give it to God and to trust in the cosmic unfolding of the process, and see if we can just figure out how to take care of our home, our family, ourselves. Cancer, you know, that self-love, that sleepy, like, you know, maybe more reclusive, like maybe it's bringing our energy back inside. It's the crab. So like bringing ourselves back, if we need to take some time and go back in our shell, like giving ourselves that gift, you know. And the Venus in Leo could be like, it's not selfish, it's self-care, right? So there is that. And of course, you know, we've talked about Saturn. It's retrograde and it's back in Pisces. So for those of us who have that Saturn in Aries, you're getting a little break here for your Saturn return, but it's still happening in a way, because it's asking us to, like I said, let go of what's still, and it's also forcing us to reckon and take responsibility for the choices that we've made, maybe the reckless choices that we've made in Saturn and Aries. So, and like letting us know that we don't have to rush things, and that we're exactly where we need to be. And it can be really difficult because we're seeing this war, this Saturn and Aries, you know, Neptune and Aries, like this like dystopian, nightmarish reality is also what it could look like when Saturn and Neptune are in Aries. But it's important for us to really just remember that, you know, I think I said this in the last video, when things are being born, it's really messy, and there's blood everywhere, and there's guts everywhere, you know, like there's like fluids everywhere, and there's the baby comes out screaming its head off, and everybody's screaming, you know, the mom's screaming, the dad's screaming, the doctor's screaming, like there's like shocking and violent, and, you know, not really violent, but like, you know, gory, and like it's real, and it's raw, and it's like, shocking and fiery and blah. So we have to trust that this is part of the birthing process, even if we are seeing, you know, horrendous things that break our hearts. Like Pisces is tapping us into our empathy for all beings. And yeah, like really calling people out right now for their spiritual bypassing, because if you're someone out there saying, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu, may all beings be happy and free, and then you are still contributing to whatever you're contributing to, if you still haven't changed the daily structures, the Virgo stuff, the 2 new moons that are Virgo, that are like changing something that we do every single day, something that we've been on autopilot about, perhaps. Something like going to the grocery store and buying meat and dairy. You know, like those are things that contribute to a violent structure that has been in place for so long that I believe is part of the things that are dying off now, because it's so contradictory to what humans claim to be, these humane beings, right? Like the word humane is supposed to be related to humans, and it's very just like big gaps in the logic at this point. And so, yeah, all you can do is trust that things are going to be changing, and that the healing is coming, and that the awakening is coming, that spiritual awakening, that Pisces energy, that Jupiter in Cancer, that rise of the divine feminine. If you are someone who is going to women's retreats or women's circles or like anything that's like associated with the divine feminine, and you're being served dairy and meat, you are also someone who is contributing to abuse of other female beings. You know, like dairy is, horrifyingly terrible for women. And I just want to take this moment now to say, like, if you are someone who thinks that cows just produce milk all the time, you are absolutely wrong. They only produce milk when they are impregnated. And so they become artificially impregnated in the dairy industry. They are giving birth to their babies, and as soon as their babies are born, they're stolen from them so that we humans, the dairy industry, can take the milk that rightfully belongs to the baby. And so I think it's a very common phrase to hear now in the plant-based community is like, you can't be a feminist and also consume dairy. And, you know, like if you are someone who is trying to preach about healing and preach about, you know, oneness and you know, spiritual, like, you know, whatever bullshit anybody's feeding you, and you're eating death, you know, you're like eating someone else's life that was stolen just so you could have a meal when it's not necessary. Spoiler alert, you don't need meat to eat. You don't need meat for protein. You don't need meat at all, ever. And so, yeah, and this is a controversial thing, but this is one of those Mars and Libra things. It's like putting the emotions off to the side because we have to do what's right. Mars taking action, justice, Libra. It's like, I don't really care how it makes you feel. I am here to be someone who's going to call out the corruption in whatever form it takes. And I believe, like, obviously the corporations are the ones that are evil and they have brainwashed us. That's another, like, Saturn Pisces thing. It's like, what kind of brainwashing are we still contributing to that, like, unlearning those things so that we can be free, so that we can let them dissolve and that we can begin again and, like, begin this new earth paradigm that we are all hopefully working towards in our own ways. You know, if we can begin that with a fresh, clean start that doesn't involve death being on everyone's plates every day, and it doesn't involve genocides in other countries, and it doesn't involve corrupt leaders that want to sell off the wildlife areas of our country, you know, like, we have to call out the corruption, and at the same time we have to be detached from the outcome and have faith. And that is not easy. Promise you that. So, I think the last thing I'll say about that is, like, if the Mercury and Sun in Virgo is asking us to also be discerning, if we are showing up to those spiritual places and things are feeling a little, like, if you're feeling that in your intuition and you're feeling like this is not in alignment, like, you are right. And also just be discerning. Like, just because someone is showing up and has a woman's circle or has whatever credentials doesn't mean that they are someone that you should follow. And that's up to you. That's only ever up to you about what feels right, what resonates, what logically makes sense to you and is in line with your morals and beliefs and what you're devoted to, Virgo. And then also what is, you know, that soul calling, that pull of your soul, that Pisces energy. It's like soul fulfilling. You know, this is the soul work that you came here to do in this lifetime. So there's my soapbox rant. My whole thing is learning how to be detached from the outcome, because I have a Cancer rising. So the reason I feel so strongly about speaking up and bringing these things to light is because I believe I'm a light worker and believe that everyone should be taken care of and everyone should, you know, have the resources. They should be fed food that actually nourishes them instead of makes them sicker. Food that isn't like, you know, a plot to keep you stuck in the loop, right? You eat the meat and then you have heart disease and then you have a heart attack, and then the same companies that pay for the meat are also the ones that pay for the cancer society and they fund cancer stuff. And so, yeah, if you are someone who's really feeling that Virgo energy to clean up your diet and to see where the corruption truly is, watching What the Health on Netflix is something I'll recommend to everyone forever. If you would like that resource, it is there for you. And that's the thing with Pluto and Aquarius for the next 20 years. It's like we have all these resources available to us. We have the technology. The information age is what they also call the age of Aquarius. And that's that water, right? The Aquarius is the water bearer, and it's got this jug of water. It's pouring the water, and the water is the information, and it's the not only just like water is life, it's bringing back the life to people. Because let's face it, Pluto and Capricorn could have turned a lot of us into just like the Walking Dead zombie people that are just like masked all the time, just conforming, and like, you know, they've lost something deeply wild. Actually, that's what the real meaning of Capricorn is like this wild feminine, really. Like Capricorn, all earth signs and water signs are feminine signs. And it really you wouldn't think that with like how everybody is feeling about Capricorn lately, and it kind of gets a bad rap because of the Pluto and Capricorn paradigm that we just came out of and we're still moving out of, and we're still watching collapse in front of us, and we're seeing that the power is moving, right? The Pluto power is moving to the people, Aquarius, and the old powers that be are really fighting to try to keep it. But there's no way, because we see the corruption and we see through it, and we're shining the lights, and we have the information. The information is there, you know, and the Aquarius is also like the revolutions that are occurring. And there are revolutions occurring, and maybe it doesn't always look like boots on the ground. It looks like, you know, taking back our power in little ways, you know, being discerning about our thinking, our critical thinking, Uranus and Gemini. Being discerning about like what we're putting in our mouths. You know, this is a Pisces North Node eclipse. That's the head of the dragon. In Vedic astrology, it's known as the head of the dragon. So the Pisces North Node is like, what are we consuming? Are we consuming stuff that is like, we need to put some boundaries around what we're consuming because it's getting too much, and it's like, you know, that head of the dragon can be very insatiable. And, you know, like, are we consuming bullshit? Like, are we consuming illusions with Pisces? Yeah, so I have said a lot of things, and I hope that that was clear, and I hope that if you have any other questions for me, I would love to answer them. I would love to do a reading for you. I will go ahead and just let you know the best way to know which house is going to be affected by your chart is to look where you have 15 degrees of Pisces. And even if you don't have any points or planets there, that is still a point in your chart. It's in everyone's chart. For me, that's like 2 degrees away from my midheaven. So like, I know this is the top of my chart. This is where I'm meant to be seen and heard, and this is my reputation, and this is my public image, and I know this is the work that I'm here to do, or else I wouldn't be doing it for free, you know? Like, I know this is my soul calling, and I wouldn't be, here if it wasn't this deep pull on my soul that, like I said, is rooted in my Cancer rising, wherever I just want everyone to be taken care of. So if any of what I've said has triggered you, please know that, like, that's my intention is not just to trigger you, it is to bring light to the dark places and to shine light on the corruption that is taking place, because Pisces is not all love and light. Pisces is not this spiritual oneness that it is. Yes, it is, but it also is like, let's like see the corruption. Let's like see through the fog. Let's see through the haziness. Let's like figure out if we're actually wearing rose-colored glasses around something, if we're spiritually bypassing, yada yada, all the things I've already said. So, yeah, if you're someone who liked this video, thank you for making it all the way to the end. And if you want to say send this to someone who you think it might resonate with, that'd be so greatly appreciated. And we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll have our second new moon in Virgo happening at 29 degrees. It's definitely hopefully we're learning the lessons that we need to be learning on the way, and once we get there, the symptoms or whatever that we might have been battling, or things that have come up from the first Virgo new moon, we're going to revisit those themes, and it's going to be louder and stronger, and hopefully we will be stronger as well after this Pisces lunar eclipse. So much love, so much compassion. Please take care of yourself. Know that self-care is not selfish. I want to leave one quote also too, and this is something that actually came up at the Virgo new moon for me, and I loved this quote, and I thought it was so going to be relevant for this Pisces energy, because Pisces really truly is either heaven or hell, right? It's like we can either be in this like self-undoing energy of Pisces, and like we could be, self-sabotaging, and we could be, self-medicating in a way that's not healthy, and we could be escaping and using escapism and in a really toxic way. It's also associated with toxicity, and in screens, and like maybe we're just like zoning out on the screen and not really being present at all, and not feeling connected to spirit at all, like the spiritual part of ourselves. We're all spiritual beings having a human experience. Or it could be that heaven, and it could be like knowing that source and spirit energy is infinite and abundant, and like endless supply of feeling good in bliss and ecstasy, and like healthy way of feeling those things. So the quote is, "Hell is locked from the inside," and it's a C.S. Lewis quote. He is the author of the Narnia series. And it's really cool, actually. Apparently all the Narnia books are supposed to be, each book is like associated with a planet. I haven't fully looked into that myself, but my teacher, my astrology teacher, is the one who mentioned that to me. So we'll draw a card and we will end it there. I have my Adventure Time tarot. I'm staying at my parents' house right now, dog sitting, clearly. So I don't have my runes today, but we're going to play with the cards for a second. All right, what card do we need for this collective reading for this Pisces lunar eclipse happening September 7th, 2025, the great year of the snakest snake. What card do we need from the Adventure Time Tarot? Okay, so we have the Ace of Wands. Bottom of the deck, Page of Cups. let's check out the Ace of Wands first. A wand presented from the heavens, made out of wood, often sprouting new green leaves. The Ace of Wands sparks courage and inspiration. Courage, Aries. Inspiration, Pisces. It readies you for a new adventure. Yeah, Ace is, kind of like the one of the cards. So the beginning. Sorry, my dog is scratching herself and her collars going all over. It also can represent sexual feelings and overwhelming desire. Aries, ruled by Mars, could be like, sexual energy. Aries is penetrative energy, masculine energy. And yes, you can be immature and laugh at the word penetration. But, that's what we mean when we say feminine and masculine in astrology. Is like masculine is like direct, penetrative energy, and feminine is like passive and receptive energy. So, with the Ace of Wands, you find faith in yourself, with the divine, with another. It is often experienced as intense excitement. The Ace of Wands is the most ephemeral of all the aces. One can easily become overwhelmed with passion, anger, and excitement, but it is very difficult to sustain. If you become distracted for a minute, the sensation passes. If you forget what you were on about. And you forget what you were on about. At the same time, and it can also be the most overwhelming of the aces. It is the feeling of being taken to another plane of existence almost. It can be the feeling of possession, that something, an idea, or perhaps another being has descended upon you. The question then becomes how to work with that. It's hard to get a lot of work done when your hair is on fire. We should ask Saint Teresa of Avila. She experienced holy visions, visitations by God that shook her both in body and spirit. There is a famous sculpture by the 17th century Italian artist Bernini that shows Saint Teresa awash in a state of ecstasy from her communion with God. She describes these visitations as painful, yet so surpassing was the sweetness of this excessive pain that I could not wish to be rid of it. Yeah, this is so on point. Yeah, and this is actually revealing another whole level of what this energy could mean. These feelings became the basis of her great collection of writings. As she tried to explain the connection between one person and the other, capital O, other. The other can be God or a lover or any other kind of intimate. Her writings are a philosophy of passion, how it causes us to lose ourselves, but also how we find ourselves, maybe our best selves, in that state. The Ace of Wands is an experience that must be translated into some other form, whether it be philosophy like Saint Teresa, or dance, or whatever you choose. The difficulty of this card is resistance to being pinned down. You might have to look to the other cards that you've pulled in a reading, blah, 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 to help you into working with the Ace of Wands. So let's check out the Page of Cups really quick, because it was on the bottom of the deck. So interesting though, the page is like the 10, or it's, well, there is the 10s, and then there's the page, so it's like 11. Page of Cups. This is a message about love or a deep emotional connection. The Page of Cups is most likely to be a muse, someone who inspires a work but never actually becomes your partner. So that's deep. It makes me definitely feel like there is a need to bring up this situation that I've come in contact with in my own personal life that feels relevant. A friend of mine that I haven't seen in a long time came to me for a reading, and I was made aware of the fact that she was in communion with other dimensional beings that have passed on to the other world, to death. And this has caused great instability in her life. And so there is a sense of losing oneself with Pisces. Like I said, you know, the 12th house Pisces energy is like the last of the zodiac. It's literally leaving the body and entering into spirit. And it could also be, it also rules over like mental institutions and rehabs and like things like that to help us to rehabilitate back into reality, because we felt so disconnected and we've been so out there in the ethers. And, you know, that could be a real thing that's occurring for us, not to freak anybody out, but I think it's important for us to really, with Virgo, it's like use the tools that we have to ground ourselves, to create that sense of peace. You know, it's very ritualistic. Maybe if you are someone who likes to do rituals on the full moon, this would be a really great one to do rituals on. So I hope what I have said has brought clarity. Saturn and Pisces cutting through the fog, bringing, you know, reality into this like spiritual liminal space, and like waking people up from any illusions that they're caught in, any brainwashing that they're caught in. And I know that for me, it's been a big lesson of just learning how to let it all be. Trying not to fix everything with a Virgo moon is big time karmic lesson that I am actively working through. So I'm not here to say that I've got it all figured out. I'm just here to offer my insights, and to translate the astrology according to my true and authentic perspective. So I appreciate you if you have been here to the end of this video, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.